Welcome to Fortify Your Future, a podcast for professionals with executive oversight of or aspirations of leading the safety and security function for their organization. I am your host, Ken Carrasco. Thank you for joining me on episode 1, season 2. If you've listened to other episodes of Fortify Your Future, you know that we like to lead off with value. So today I'm offering you 2 ebooks for free. And the 2 ebooks that are available are Transitioning to Private Sector Security and Beyond the Badge, Navigating the Path from Security Expert to Business Strategist. All you need to do is at checkout, utilize the discount code of Fortify. That's Fortify, Fortify, and that's 100% discount. So just so you know, that's a $97 value for each one of those items. So feel free to go right now to kencarrasco.gumroad.com. Use that discount code at checkout, and you'll get those for free if you want one or both. Now, on today's episode, I'm going to be talking about what I'm going to be focusing in on this coming year in terms of the episodes that we'll be completing, the guests that we'll be bringing on board, and sort of a stretch goal for me in terms of who I'd like to have as a guest on my podcast. So first of all, let's start off with some focus areas in which I'd like to continue to develop and explore. And most importantly, thinking about what we'd like to do in terms of sort of my singular vision for this year, which is authenticity, especially in this age of AI. I think in terms of what's going on relative to how AI is being manipulated and utilized is something as security professionals that we need to pay attention to, and as individuals that we need to pay attention to, because it's just becoming so easy to create things that are not real. And so as we continue to put ourselves out there and utilize AI as best we can and leverage it, it's important to understand that it's going to be a part of our daily lives, personally and professionally. And we have to understand how to leverage it as we move forward while maintaining authenticity in terms of who we are and not completely depending upon AI to perform all of the things that we need to do, certainly not creatively. So in terms of things that we learned in season 1, and for those of you who this is your first time listening in, I would encourage you to go back. I'll provide the episode references as I continue to speak about certain subjects. But I'll begin with, most importantly on the front end, the idea of authenticity in the age of AI. It's something that I think when I'm sort of connecting the dots and thinking about why it's important and reflecting back on some of the conversations we had in season 1, I'd like to begin with thought leadership and what that means sort of in today's world, and why it's so important for us to really think about how we're going to present ourselves to our industry peers, to the industry at large, the community at large as professionals. And I think it's really important to understand that it's part of the competitive landscape. I don't think there's any way around it because of the idea of things being so competitive in today's marketplace for jobs, for contracts, attracting clients, those sorts of things. You've got to be able to put yourself out there. You have to be able to adapt and embrace those sorts of things and feel comfortable with the idea of either becoming or thought of as a thought leader. Also, using different terms in terms of social media, influencer. I kind of sort of collectively put those things all together because it's really not about in terms of perspective and how people are looking. And this is really, from the standpoint of where the market is heading, is that it seems to be more about attention rather than substance, unfortunately. However you look at it, it could be something that you appreciate. On the negative side, it's one of those things where it can be very superficial, right? But the thought is that unfortunately today, it is important. People who follow large followings for individuals tend to, the implication is credibility. And I think there's some relevance there. That is true. And as we continue to navigate forward and try to provide an opportunity to present ourselves in the marketplace in order to be able to attract clients, get new jobs, promotions, those sorts of things, they all tend, in my mind, tie together relative to why it's so important to be able to put yourself out there. For some of us, it's going to be very uncomfortable, things that we've not typically have done in the past, and we're going to have to embrace. Learning new skills is going to be key and important as you continue to navigate forward. And one of the episodes, episode 9, where I interviewed Leslie Rubin, a tremendous professional in terms of executive communications and branding. In that particular episode, Leslie really reinforces why branding is so important and why image matters. And so would encourage you to go back to that particular episode, episode 9, where Leslie gets into detail and why it's really important to pursue that. We also talked about her book. Her book is Filling the Leadership Gap. And again, it's one of those things that takeaways for me is really understanding the strategies that she goes over in creating dynamic leadership presence. It's important and key as we continue to navigate forward in our careers. And so I encourage you to go back and look at that particular episode. I think back along the same lines, I think back to the interview I completed with Ellen Steverson. And Ellen talked about how one life and one career, that we're really on this singular path in terms of what we're doing in our career. And it's really all about career management. So again, if you're caught, you're stuck, there's things that you're trying to figure out in terms of, your path navigating forward and trying to understand what that next step looks like, highly encourage you to take a look at the episode we completed with Ellen Steverson, episode 16. And she goes into detail about some of the strategies that she recommends to her clients. And Ellen's just a tremendous resource when it comes to being a professional relative to HR recruitment, and many, many years and many, many clients that she's assisted over those years to successfully either transition or either obtain that next level of leadership in terms of a role. So I encourage you to go back, look at that particular episode, take a listen to it. A lot of good information there. Now, when we talk about how things have shifted, when we talk about leadership and we talk about things about managing people, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Ron Ricci. In that episode 7, Ron really starts talking about what the future looks like in terms of managing in uncertain times, and the thought of the fact that the career corporate ladder no longer exists. In 2026, the corporate ladder is dead. And what that means is that it's shifting to this career story, or this idea of moving from chapter to chapter. We're looking for the next opportunity to continue to build our career story. Highly encourage you to take a listen to that particular episode. Ron has done a tremendous amount of research on this subject and has tools to support what his current strategies are moving forward. So definitely not to miss episode is the interview I conducted with Ron Ricci. And finally, I'd like to talk about another author that we had the opportunity to interview, Brian Banta, and we actually did a series on his book, Leadership Uncomplicated. And I think what's key about that particular episode and the series of episodes that we completed with Brian is that he provided very specific tools and resources and guidance that takes you step by step through a process of really understanding what it takes to be a leader in today's world. And so again, take a look at that series. Start with episode 5. That's the first really episode that we completed before the 5-part series that we decided to pursue, that Brian was so generous with his time with us so that we could go into depth on each chapter or each focus area of his book, Leadership Uncomplicated. And so again, I can't encourage you enough to go back, take a listen to our season 1. We had a great time with all of the interviews that we conducted. Really tremendous, really good opportunity to further develop what I wanted to do relative to training and understanding what the future was going to look like, what it should look like, and where we need to focus as an industry in terms of developing this next generation of leadership. And for those also transitioning from the public sector to the private sector. There's a lot of challenges there from folks that are coming out of law enforcement, that are coming out of the military, or coming out of the government into the private sector. So we're going to continue to develop those things, focus in on those things, and hopefully we'll continue to provide good value, good content that's actionable for you as you continue to move forward in your career paths. Lastly, I'd like to give a shout out to Riverside FM. They provided me this T-shirt, this black T-shirt, very cool. Thank you, Riverside FM. They're the platform I utilize for my podcast. I started using them in season 1, about midstream, and I've loved the application. It makes it so easy for me to publish what we're doing here on Fortify Your Future. Also, would like to give some additional shout outs to a couple of the authors that we had the opportunity to interview. Again, I'll bring up Brian Banta's book, Leadership Uncomplicated. And again, all of the books that I reference in today's episode and all episodes, we'll provide links to. And most recently, we were fortunate to interview Michael Gips, and his new book, It's Not in the Manual, A Real World Leadership for Security and Risk Professionals. Excellent book. Highly recommend these things as the books to read in 2026. Add them to your list of books that are on your professional list for working on your individual skills, individual leadership development program that you've set for yourself for 2026. And I'd like to thank you again for joining me on my podcast and hopefully making it as successful as we did last year, coming right out of the gate as a season 1 opener. So thank you very much for your time, and look forward to you joining us on a future episode of Fortify Your Future with Ken Carrasco. Thank you.